Hi, I'm Rahel Philipose and you are listening to Three Things, the Indian Express news show. In this episode, we talk about the murder of a 19-year-old Dalit woman in Rajasthan, which resulted in a political row in the state. We also talk about a peace room that has been started by the West Bengal governor to address the ongoing poll violence in the state. But first, we talk about Indo-French ties. Last week, Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited France, where he was invited to be the guest of honor at Bastille Day, which is celebrated on the 14th of July to commemorate the beginning of the French Revolution. When we asked the Indian Express's Nirupama Subramanian about the significance of this invitation, she said that France doesn't regularly invite foreign guests to the Bastille Day parade.
So it is a singular honor. And of course, the fact that the Rahel that were inducted in the IAF, they flew in the fly past, and then there was a trike services contingent marching in the parade. All this is very symbolic, and it signifies that this is one of the most important relationships that India has in the world.
During this visit, she says India and France came up with a roadmap which will strengthen the bilateral relationship between the two countries.
Friends, हम अपनी स्ट्रेटेजिक पार्टनरशिप की 25वीं वर्षगांठ मना रहे हैं। बीते 25 वर्षों के मजबूत आधार पर हम आने वाले 25 वर्षों के लिए रोडमैप तैयार कर रहे हैं। इसमें
To know more about how the relationship between France and India has evolved over time and the outcomes of Prime Minister Modi's latest visit to France, my colleague Utsa Sarmin speaks to Nirupama in this segment.
Nirupama, to begin with, how would you say the strategic partnership between India and France has changed over the past 25 years?
So, Prime Minister Modi's visit marked 25 years of the Indo-French strategic partnership, which was signed in 1998, within months of India's nuclear tests, when India was an outcast in the world. And France was the first to recognize India's strategic importance, India's emergence as a power in the world. So the French had the foresight to see all this. And that strategic partnership was the first that India signed with any country in the world. So this moment when Prime Minister Modi went to France and participated in the Bastille Day parade is important because it also signifies the continuity of the relationship over a quarter century. And it has been nurtured by 3 Indian Prime Ministers, 4 French presidents, and there has never been a stutter in the relationship. Let me put it that way. There have been no differences. India and France have no big problems in their bilateral relationship.
And could you tell us what are the key areas of cooperation between the two nations?
Well, defense cooperation is one of the biggest pillars, the strongest pillars of cooperation. India and France have cooperated in strengthening India's air force, in strengthening Indian Navy's capabilities. India and France have jointly built the Calaveri class submarines, which is basically the French Scorpion submarine. India has bought fighter jets from France, earlier the Jaguar, now the Rafale, which have been inducted into the Indian Air Force recently. And we are going to buy more Rafale from them. So that defense relationship is very, very important. Then we also cooperate in the space sector, and that is important too. I mean, we have a strategic partnership in which we have cooperation in almost all fields, climate, energy security. So we cooperate across sectors. But if you ask me which are the top most important ones, I would say defense, and the second would be space. And now perhaps it will be the Indo-Pacific as well.
And this strategic Indo-Pacific cooperation, it was discussed during Modi's visit, right? So tell us more about its roadmap and what India aims to achieve.
So the Indo-Pacific roadmap is basically now with this whole issue of China, and as all countries have started calling it, a competition with China. The Indo-Pacific region has become a very important region. It is a region of geopolitical contestation. So it was natural that France would be interested in the Indo-Pacific because it is the only country in Europe that has territories in the Indo-Pacific. So the roadmap that has been adopted here, India and France have committed in this roadmap to cooperate for economic and security reasons and then ensure equal and free access to the sea and build partnerships in the region, etc. What it means in real terms is, India and France have been cooperating in this maritime domain awareness for a long time. Since India set up this information fusion center outside Delhi in Gurgaon, basically. And they were the first to send a liaison officer to that center. Therefore, so there will be more of that. There has been a separate agreement for cooperation on maritime domain awareness. And there's also a section on trilateral cooperation with the UAE, which is a strategic partner for France also and for India as well.
Right. And Nirupama, what would you say were some of the other key outcomes of this visit?
So the Indo-Pacific roadmap is just one part of the roadmap on Indo-French Strategic Partnership Horizon 2047, which is also another outcome of this visit. And the roadmap to 2047 that year is important because it marks 100 years of India's independence and 50 years of the India-French strategic partnership, which began, as I said, in 1998. There are other elements to this roadmap. There is also the defense cooperation. There is also the space partnership. So these are the three key areas in the Partnership for Security and Sovereignty. Then the roadmap for 47 also has a partnership for the climate. And then there's a third partnership, which is to promote people-to-people exchanges. So there'll be more visas from the French for students, and there'll be another French consulate in Hyderabad and an Indian consulate in Marseille. So these are the elements of the roadmap.
And this roadmap, what does it mean for the future of India's relationship with France?
So the India-France relationship has just grown from strength to strength. And it has progressed in many ways. And defense cooperation is one, but it has progressed in all other sectors also. Even during the pandemic, during the Delta wave, if you remember when India was struggling for oxygen and there was panic in Delhi, France was one of the countries that was one of the early responders. So there is across sectors, there is complete trust, there is sensitivity to each other's concerns. As well, both countries see themselves as practicing strategic autonomy in their foreign policy, and they're proud about their independence in foreign policy. So there's a convergence at all levels. France sees itself as a leading Europe in a multipolar world where Europe will be a third power. And India also sees itself as one of the poles in a multipolar world. So across all these things, there is convergence between India and France. And this partnership can only enhance that convergence.
And Nirupama, this visit to France comes after Modi's visit to the US. So how would you compare and contrast these two visits with each other?
As I said, the relationship with France is 25 years old. The kind of sanctions that the US imposed on India after the 1998 nuclear tests, France didn't do any of that. Prime Minister Vajpayee visited France in September, October that year. It was the first country that invited him, first Western country that invited the Indian Prime Minister. Because as I said, we were outcast to the world. Then if you look at defense cooperation, the US has always been hesitant to share technology with even its closest friends, even with partners. So even now in the GE F414 deal, India will not get some part of that technology. Whereas France has been very generous with sharing technology. And it has always been interested in seeing the emergence of India as another power in Asia. France has stood by India through thick and thin, on all issues of concern to India. So this is something that India has not got from the US. I mean, there are always concerns the US makes pronouncements about India's religious freedoms or India's internal situations, democracy, backslide. France and India have this long tradition that they will not comment on each other's internal affairs. So although the EU did take up that whole Manipur issue, the European Parliament took up the Manipur issue when Prime Minister Modi traveled to France, it did not really come up in discussions between Macron and Modi. So this is how it's different.
Dear listeners, before we continue, a quick announcement. The next segment contains descriptions of rape and violence. And next we talk about Rajasthan. Last week, the body of a 19-year-old Dalit woman was found in a well in Rajasthan's Karoli district. According to the victim's family, the girl was attacked with acid, gang raped and murdered before her body was disposed in the well, located just a couple of kilometers away from her home. Since then, the main accused in the case, a 20-year-old man named Golu Meena, was arrested and his father was detained. But in the days leading up to Meena's arrest, the case has become a massive political issue in the state, with the BJP, Congress, BSP and AAP all stepping in. In this segment, the Indian Express's Hamza Khan joins us to talk about what happened. So Hamza, do we know what happened on the night that this 19-year-old woman was murdered?
So, first of all, there are two versions. One is what the girl's mother said, and second is the police version, which is still under progress. So, as per the girl's mother, she said that it was around 3 a.m. on the night of 11th and 12th. So, she was sleeping outside the home under the sky with her 4 children. So, she said that all 5 of them were sleeping outside, and then she heard some noise. And then she saw 2-3 men who came and picked up her daughter and stuffed a cloth into her mouth to probably stop her from screaming. And then there was a car waiting for them and its engine was on, and they stuffed her inside the car and sped away. So the mother said that I called up a relative who lives in Jaipur. So that relative came to the village around 10 in the morning, which is 12th morning. And then I spoke to the relative as well, and he said that when I came to the village, around 10 of us, we searched for the girl and we couldn't find her anywhere. And then by evening, they went to the local police station and asking them that, please lodge an FIR. But they claim that they were threatened by the head constable and the policeman present in that police station to go back, to wait, that the girl will come by morning, just, wait for this night as well. By 13th morning, she'll be back. And so they claim that they were threatened that you'll be locked up inside the jail. So anyway, all of this happened. And on the 13th morning, the family got to know about girl's body being discovered in a well around 7 kilometers from their home. So the girl's mother and other relatives went to the well and found out that, it was the daughter who had been missing all this while.
Okay, and could you talk about what actions the police took after the body was found?
So the family saw that there was some mark on her chest, and it seemed as if acid had been thrown on her face and on her body. So this is all the family found. And then, so by then the police had got to know about this body being found. And so they lodged a case of unnatural death under CRPC 174. So what the police initially did was, since the body was found in a well, so it's apparently normal for them to lodge a case of unnatural death. So it was more of a formality. So that case was registered. It was 13th. And so an FIR was lodged only on 14th around midnight. So today, the police finally revealed that the accused, as in the person who allegedly murdered, was known to the girl and was her neighbor. His name is Golu Meena. And apparently, like, the SP stopped short of saying that the two were in a relationship. But the SP said that the two knew each other, and the girl went out of the home around 1 a.m. and met this guy. And she had been engaged to someone else, and she didn't like that person. So she was not happy with her engagement. And Golu Meena apparently was unhappy, with the engagement as well. And so there was some disagreement. We don't know what they spoke about. So he apparently got enraged and murdered the girl. So that is what the police said. While Golu Meena has been arrested, his father has also been detained.
Right. And we also saw opposition parties, starting with the BJP, getting involved. How did that happen?
So when the news spread that a Dalit girl has been found in this manner. So it just spread like wildfire, and BJP leader Kirodi Lal Meena, who is also a Rajya Sabha MP, and that area is his stronghold. That region, large parts of eastern Rajasthan are his stronghold. So he reached, Hindon city, and he started protesting. And he was claiming that there was a cover-up. And although the police and the doctors say that there was no cover-up, so a post-mortem was conducted. And I spoke to the superintendent of the hospital, the principal medical officer of the hospital, where the post-mortem was conducted. And he told me that they found a bullet lodged in the girl's chest. And then there were marks on her face and on her arms, which might have been due to acid, but we'll be able to ascertain that only after the FSL report. Same goes for rape. They said that, it'll be ascertained only after the FSL report comes in. But of course, she was shot in her chest, and, you can't deny that because a bullet was retrieved from her chest. So the doctor said that, we ourselves told all of this to the family. But anyway, for whatever reasons, for political reasons, the BJP claimed that there was a cover-up. And the Rajya Sabha MP, Kirodi Lalji, he demanded that, another post-mortem should be conducted and it should be videographed.
Okay, and how was this second post-mortem conducted? Were the findings any different?
So while the first post-mortem was conducted by 4 doctors from the government hospital in Hindon itself, a second medical board was constituted upon directions from the district collector, and a team of 3 doctors came from Karoli headquarters, and a second post-mortem was conducted. So far the report of the second post-mortem or even the first post-mortem, the both reports are awaited, but there shouldn't be much discrepancy, like going by what the doctors and what the police and the people involved told us. And the reports are awaited, the FSL reports.
Right. And it wasn't just the BJP that was raising these demands, right? Other political parties also stepped in, and this became a pretty major political issue.
Yeah, so by Friday, political parties and their representatives started reaching the hospital where the body was kept in the mortuary. So when I went there on Friday, so there were multiple tents within the hospital, but outside the hospital building. Outside the hospital building, but within the premises. So there was one tent of BSP workers who were awaiting the arrival of the Rajya Sabha MP Ramji Gautam. There was another tent which had some, Aam Aadmi Party workers. And there was a third, place. There was a third structure which had a proper roof, a cemented roof and everything. So there, the girl's family was sitting surrounded by BJP workers. And apart from that, of course, there are other organizations, other, smaller organizations of, various communities which have been, visiting and reaching the spot and, finding out the situation for themselves and issuing statements. So all of this has been happening in the context of elections, which are due in about 4 months in Rajasthan. So that plus the assembly session is also on. So it's all the more reason for the parties to work harder or, to show their presence at such a protest.
And in the end, we talk about West Bengal. This past month, Bengal has witnessed relentless political violence surrounding its panchayat polls, resulting in the loss of 52 lives. The polls concluded on the 11th of July with the Trinamool Congress winning by a landslide, but the state continues to be engulfed in turmoil. Now, to respond to the situation, the West Bengal governor, C.V. Ananda Bose, established a peace room within his residence in Kolkata. This room has been operating round the clock with a group of workers who respond to distress calls from individuals who fear for their safety and ensure that they receive immediate aid from the local law enforcement. To know more about how this peace room works and why the state government is not happy with such an initiative, here's Utsa again speaking to the Indian Express's Sweety Kumari.
Sweety, can you tell us what led the governor to start this peace room?
Yeah, Utsa, basically, peace room is a help room which has been opened in Raj Bhavan to respond to the grievances of the public. Like, there have been a lot of violence and people have been complaining that even police are not responding to them properly and their complaints are not being registered or heard at the police station. So, there were frequent field visits by our Honorable Governor C.V. Ananda Bose to violence-affected areas in recent past, and it was on June 17 that he had visited South Chobis Pargana and he had received a lot of, informations and tip-offs about violence on ground in Bengal. And in the view of the numerous complaints that he had received from the citizens on criminal intimidation and threats, that he decided to open this peace room, which will basically hear out all the complaints of the common people and forward the same to the concerned authorities in order to assure some actions.
And could you talk about how this room functions? How do its workers handle the grievances and address people's concerns?
So it is basically a room on the first floor of the Raj Bhavan, where proper 3 to 4 land phones are there. There are telecallers and a proper setup is there. Total 8 members team work round the clock in this peace room. So they basically receive call there. So there are telephone numbers which has been well telecasted by Raj Bhavan, and there is an exclusive email ID shared by the Raj Bhavan governor. So they receive calls and complaints on this email ID and assure help and transfer the same to governor or State Election Commission for immediate action. So whenever they receive any call, so they transfer the same, they register the details of the complaint, like name of the person, if that complainant is comfortable sharing his personal details, the name of his constituency, and what exactly the complaint is. So basically, they take the details of the complaint, they make a note of it, and then transfer the same to the governor. Sometimes what happens, if the complaint is very serious, governor personally intervenes, calls them back, assures them help, and in 80 to 90% of the cases, they basically transfer the complaint to State Election Commission and concerned authorities for immediate action.
Right, and Sweety, does the peace room mainly receive calls from the workers of the opposition parties? Because they are the ones who have been blaming the TMC for the poll violence.
So, as per the people working in this peace room, yes, the maximum complaints that they receive are from opposition party, and they vary from criminal intimidation, from threat to murders. I mean, all sorts of complaints they are receiving from opposition. But having said that, they also said that they have also received regular complaints from ruling party workers, and they have also registered their complaint in the governor's house, claiming that they were threatened by the opposition party. So this peace room, which is receiving complaint from everybody, from the opposition to the ruling party, is definitely a one-point contact for people who are in trouble due to the poll violence.
Right, and could you tell us how the state government has reacted to this initiative?
So we all know the tussle between the governor and Mamata Banerjee government has always been there, and due to this peace room, this has basically, the tussle has reached a flashpoint. This is definitely an unprecedented step by any governor of state, that is opening this peace room for people during a poll. So basically, Trinamool leaders were not very happy with the proactiveness of the Governor C.V. Anand Bose, and sometimes, some of the TMC leaders have also accused Governor C.V. Anand Bose of acting like a spokesperson for the BJP. Some Trinamool leaders have also accused Governor of acting or working in alliance with all the opposition, be it CPIM, Congress, BJP altogether. So Governor has been criticized by ruling Trinamool Congress for this peace room. And lot of leaders have accused him of, working beyond his constitutional power, and said that he doesn't have any power of opening any peace room. So the ruling Trinamool Congress has not been welcoming this step, definitely. But a section of opposition also feel that it is a futile effort by governor, because it doesn't have any power. Ultimately, when whatever complaint that peace room is receiving, it is being transferred to the State Election Commission, and which has been accused of being partisan towards the ruling Trinamool Congress in recent past. So ultimately, TMC has criticized governor for his proactiveness, claiming that he's exercising power more than he's supposed to do. And opposition also feels that these are just something which doesn't have any meaning, because, governor doesn't enjoy any law and order power. It is a constitutional head post, and he's only transferring the complaints to different authorities.
Okay, and Sweety, the peace room was started to address the concerns over widespread violence during the elections. But now that the elections are over, what is the reason that it is still functioning?
So, the violence is still continuing in the state. We are reporting murders and different incidents every day. And if I'm not wrong, if we look at the numbers, then probably from the day election was announced, almost 52 people have died during this entire polling process. So the intention of this peace room was to restore peace, and it was basically, even governor was explaining the press when it was open that this peace room is basically a bridge between the common people and the law enforcement agencies during the panchayat poll, because there are a lot of violence related incidents. So because violence is still continuing in the state, and there are several candidates of panchayat elections who have not been able to return to their home out of fear, and there are regular incidents of houses being vandalized and shops being ransacked and people being physically assaulted. So till the time there are such incidents occurring in the state, I think probably they'll continue the peace room.
You were listening to Three Things by the Indian Express. Today's show was hosted by me, Rahel Philipose, and written and produced by Utsa, Sarmin, me, Rahel Philipose, and Shashank Bhargava. It was edited and mixed by Suresh Pawar. If you like the show, then do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone who you think will like it. Share it with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can also tweet us at @Express Podcasts and write to us at podcasts@indianexpress.com.